But apps in general, this is kind of will apply to all of this. So release and testing is kind of what I wanted to go over next. And I'm actually going through this really fast. Anyone have questions, let me know right away.
Well, actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
For those of us who've never written anything but business code and we want to get into like a game arena, what is like some of the things that we should do to set up our dev environment and like some of the fundamentals that you need to move over to like a visual, like point and click type interface that you're putting together?
You're never going to really get a point and click type interface unless you build one for your game. Now, Unity is the closest thing to that, where you have like a whole development studio, and then you write little bits of code here and there, and I'll show that in a little bit. However, if you wanted to get started with just like simple games, depending if you're in the .NET arena or if you're working in Java or Android, iPhone, the best idea to go for is to get one of their test projects. I started with Android's Lunar Lander game, and basically all that is you get your development environment set up, which is a big pain for Android. But once you have it set up, you can go get their samples, and one of their samples is the Lunar Lander. It has an update draw loop. It has a simple set of controls that use the tilt of the phone to land, play the old Lunar Lander game. What that gave me is a starting point to start doing squids, which I then looked at the code, figured out what I needed to do to go ahead and produce something that was my own. The same thing goes for XNA. XNA, if you have Visual Studio or Visual Studio Express, you can just go ahead and go to the Microsoft XNA website and download. They have this Asteroids tutorial that you can do, and that was also very easy. That's all, you have full access to the .NET libraries, and then you have on top of that the XNA libraries, which will do all the DirectX calls for you, which makes everything managed and happy and really easy to do.
Now you mentioned the Unity framework works on C#, so I mean, is that just like DLLs that we throw into Visual Studio, or
no,
do you have to do it in Eclipse and Mono?
The nice little special thing about Unity, and I can show that to you right here, is so you have a number of different objects in this browser here. It kind of would look like any other Solution Explorer, except in Unity, basically you have a kind of a drag and drop interface for all your 3D like environment stuff. And I actually used sort of an open source solution in Unity to make a 2D game out of a 3D engine. But the nice thing about that is I can publish it on any platform. So what we have here is a bunch of C# DLLs, and actually this is using MonoDevelop for its editor. So it'll bring up MonoDevelop, and MonoDevelop lets you write C# or JavaScript code and compile it down to iPhone, Android. But this is kind of extended because it also publishes to a Flash-like web application and a number of other different kind of engines that it will be accessed on top of. So this is kind of your development environment. A few months ago, it was really terrible for refactoring. It actually put curly braces where there weren't any and things like that. It was really a nightmare. It's gotten a lot better since then, so they've done a pretty good job of stuff like that. So I can go over some of this code in here. I'm pretty open about my code. I don't think anyone here can write something that I've written here. So I'll go over it a little bit later. But the idea with Unity is this library can be written in both JavaScript and C#. JavaScript, you can get away with a lot of stuff in JavaScript. Things that need to be strongly typed, there are keywords that you can strongly type them, and then you can just write the whole thing in JavaScript. Similar to an HTML5 app, but you're still dealing with kind of the Microsoft Windows 8 thing, where they have special libraries off in the back. So they have things that are very similar to the .NET library in here, but it's still specific to Unity. But this actually creates a SLN file in the background, and then uses a separate compiler and things like that. So MonoDevelop's pretty cool because, I mean, that's how they're getting it out to both the iPhone and Android and Xbox. And actually, if you get the licensing and the funds from it, you can publish this to PlayStation and Wii with the massive amounts of money that you have to sink into licensing fees. So the interesting thing about this. Let's see if this is what I think it is. Yeah, so here, let's see if I can get this going. So kind of here's a designer. So this is for a turret defense game. And basically, I have a little designer. It shows you the objects in the game. You can run it at any time and test your code. And it really has a robust system for doing that. This is what the game sees, and so you can put down turrets and things like that. So getting this up and running was pretty difficult to make a 2D game in Unity because you had to use an open source library that they have. But once you got that working, it was really easy to build this stuff because all of the artificial intelligence for the turrets, finding its targets and stuff like that, that was like either code that was already written by other people or really easy to make small class packages that would allow you to do that sort of thing. So that's just a really good example. But as far as development goes, it really doesn't matter what platform you use. It's you can start working on it, get something on the screen, make it do something. Find if you don't have an artist, do it in Paint. I've seen a lot of Square games where just squares are doing stuff, and it was really interesting. And people download it and people play those games. It's really like you don't have to have graphics. My wife went to school for video game art and design, but she likes this 2D painting thing.
Question on the Unity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an app that you install on your machine?
Yeah, so that whole, it's like a development environment that you can download off the Unity's website, and it's free to, I just started playing music. It's free to get started and release something to the web. So right now you can just download it, make a small game, and put it in a web player. And there are portals that you can do, who knows about Kongregate? Anybody here know about Kongregate? So Kongregate is a Flash portal. And in Kongregate, you can go ahead and, no, I lost my train of thought. You tie in achievements, and then you can have ads, shown on there. So they'll give you a check, each month and things like that. And that's how I do monetization for this stuff.
Yeah. The Unity IDE, I'm assuming there's an emulator there when you're doing debugging?
Yeah, so that's actually their engine. So all the code you write is script for that engine, and then basically you can view it running at any point in the game you want at any time. So you create scenes for your game, and then you can just go ahead and run it and get started right away. It's actually, now it's a really easy system to use. Before, it was a nightmare. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube for tutorials and things like that. So it is a really good choice to make right now, especially since you can have people test your game on their computer and then say, okay, I'm ready to release to Android, pay them like $400. I don't know what the license fee is, but it's around $400. You pay them $400, and then you go ahead and start, advertising on Android or whatever.